bless Alai, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry, I'm not going to do that whole bit where I say I don't want to talk about it and only do a 1 minute video. We're going to talk about it. Well, stick a fork in us, right? I told you last week the Warriors were done, but it turns out we're done. Oh, and that fork cuts deep, ladies and gentlemen. Oh man, another season in disappointment. And maybe you're saying, but Nasty Nate, the season's not over yet. It's over, you guys. Like, wake up and sniff the Cintas that the Cesta gloves. Probably don't do that. It's over. We need to embrace harsh realities here. 10 games, 10. 10 games in, and we have 3 points to show for it, and 6 losses. 6 losses. It's over for the Cyclones. Just other seasons, like, it'd be interesting to go through and look at all the whatchamacallit, equate it to what it would have been if there's possible points remaining. And I think, it'd be really bad because we've had like 3 5-1 losses. And so what happened? I get we're gonna go cyclone heavy here, folks. I've been trying to talk a little bit more about other teams, but this is what's brought me into highlight. So I am before you know what, I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna pause before we get there. I'm gonna talk about something positive. I'm on spring break, ladies and gentlemen, and you know what I was able to do? Stu Nyman has been commenting saying, "Hey, check out the Magic City Pelota because we're in the chat. You can chat there and ask questions." And a few weeks ago I said, I've been watching this sport, but I don't know a lot about the shots. And so I was like, on my spring break, I am going to check it out. And so I made sure on Monday that I checked it out, and it was great. I learned a lot about a cortada, a shot thrown from the right that hits the front wall and then hits the side wall. It's very difficult to return. I felt pretty good on that one going in, but I learned about a costado, which is on the left side backhand, and it's about being thrown shoulder level. That was something like I thought of all the throws in highlight in terms of like where they're hitting on the court. But it turns out, I think for a costado, what makes it a costado is like the height at which it's thrown. So that was like really fascinating to hear. And like Stu and Andrew they're like really engaged in the chat and answering questions, and they were shouting out the great work that we've done here at God Bless Highlight. So I just want to shout them out and say, hey, thanks for inviting me, thanks for welcoming me. That was awesome to learn more about the game and hear some of your experiences of like announcing highlight. There's some great stories that were told, and if anybody's here listening to this podcast and you haven't checked out like the Magic City Pelota times, check it out because it's a great opportunity to chat, ask questions, and learn more about the game. I wish that I wasn't all the way over here on the West Coast and I could do it more often than just my spring break. Couldn't do it Tuesday because I had to go. I was driving during that, and I was actually getting my phone repaired because my middle child threw it off of a second story mall balcony. Thankfully, it didn't hit anybody, but I had to get that repaired. So I was sans phoneless for several hours while that was being repaired and could not make it to the Tuesday session. But that was a great experience. Thanks for inviting me. Glad I went, learned a lot, very enjoyable. So there, positive, something good. And now Clone Cartel, all vibes, all time low. Two weeks ago, vibes were bad. And then I got myself back and I looked and I was like, you know what? We have 2 games in hand and the Chargers are 2 points away. The Warriors haven't won a game day. Let's just give ourselves a point there, Nasty Nate, and get our hopes up. And then, hey, I looked at the matchups for that. And, I looked at them and I was like, hey, I feel like a tie is within grasp, and not only a tie, it's possible we could win. And and then I see the odds come out on Instagram. I'm like, hey, it's split 50-50. Like, we're favored in half the matches. The Fireballs are favored in half the matches if you look at the betting odds. And then what happens? We get worked. And it's like, I'm not going to go and like really analyze these games in depth because both of the games were just really disappointing. Um, Dominated 5-1 by, so the reason I'm not going to analyze the games is it's not like I can point in other times with this team this season. I'd break it down more because it was like, oh man, this was a really key play. If we'd have only did this, if we'd have only did that, we could have gotten half a point. We could have gotten a full point, right? Not the case for these last two game days, which we absolutely had to get something in these two games so we could make up ground on the Chargers. And it just, there's nothing for me to analyze other than we got demolished on both game days. 5-1 to the Fireballs. The Fireballs are just running it up right now. Again, they're top of the league. I think they're a full point ahead of anybody else. Their last game they tied the Renegades. Like, they only have one game day loss. That's it. So they're playing really, really well. Again, another thing, if I have more time, I'm kind of crunched for time for this one. What I might do later towards the end of this season is, because this would take a lot of time, but I do kind of want to do it because I like taking the time looking at these things and kind of breaking some stuff down and bringing some of like my own analysis. I'd like to go back and take the time to break down point by point and see how these seasons stack up to the like possible points remaining strategy, right? It's hard to quantify just how, although I'll tell you the Fireballs, like, I don't need to go back and look at the numbers to tell you the Fireballs are having one of the best seasons, because not only when you have how they have this set up, if you get a game day win and get a full day, like, that's a good sizable victory. And they've been getting a lot of game day wins, few ties. And even if you look back at those ties based on what matches they could have won could have been game day wins in prior seasons. So it'd be interesting to look at that, if even their ties or wins, because if they were winning doubles, right, and losing the singles. um Fireballs have been phenomenal, but as that stands, Renegades, they have that experience of knowing you can have a phenomenal season where last year it felt like nobody was going to take down the Renegades. And I joke about like Go Cherry, like choking like that. It's just a highlight. The ball goes so incredibly fast. Like, any given day when you have these teams, like, the margin of error is very slim. And you look at how that, again, that shot of Zuleika winning it was an incredible shot. But I've gotten sidetracked. Fireballs taking off. They dominated us. So it's just a like poor showing again. And then Monday shows up and it's like, okay, we get dominated. Things don't go our way. Like, we know that's a possibility because of who the Fireballs were, right? So I can talk myself into like, at least we can get a point here, and we'll only be a point behind the Chargers. And then we go and get worked 4-2 and give the Warriors their first win. And at one point, I think the Cyclones lost 8 straight sets. And it's just kind of like, it's really, so 3 seasons now. It's really disappointing to be out of the playoffs again. And in terms of all these teams, like, right, season 5, not that disappointed in that season, because when you lose the championship, that's actually one of the hardest places to be in Battle Court. You're going to take a hit in the draft and getting some of your players, and in previous seasons you're going to have less locks. You're going to be able to keep less of your players, and you're not going to get as good of players. And so new going into season 5, like, hey, it's it's going to be tough to get back because of our position. And then we have a tough season, but we have a lower draft. So I think we were the second in the draft. So should go up. And the team looked good last year. Injuries. You can throw that one out. So many injuries. And in the end, like I think it was all of a half a point or something that it came down to. If we won like one other match, we would have been in the playoffs. So that one was like, oh, so close. This one, like, man, when it comes down to it, unless this team like sets the world afire with their play, which I guess you would at the start of the season, you would think it's possible, unless this team goes on like basically 5-0, they're not gonna make it. They don't have to go 5-0, but they do close. And so it's really disappointing because there hasn't been any major injuries. They've just not gotten it done. And so what has happened with the Cyclones? I think uh the broadcast mentioned something interesting with Andrew and Stu. They had brought up the construction of the team, which is something I thought about when they first did. I'm like, that's interesting. They broke up a long-standing team of Bueno and Manu and made it Ikeda and Manu instead. Bueno and Manu has been a successful team. Like for us, I think they were together 3 seasons. Oh man, now I'm getting so mixed up in all these things that I think like his 4, 5, 6, 7. So we drafted him. You can only So Bueno's been with us for 4 seasons now because he was with us, wasn't he? Season 4, yeah. Anyway, I'm not gonna go down. Last time I had to cut out a bunch of stuff because I went down this whole rabbit hole of trying to like map out the seasons again. Battle Court. The seasons go by so fast; they blend together. Anyway, so the broadcast mentioned that they broke up that team, and I thought that at the time I was like interesting, like, but you pair Ikeda with Manu, you would think that's an upgrade, and it just flatly has not been. I think to counter what was said, like last season, Bueno and Manu was not as good of a team as they've been in the past. If memory serves me correct, I think they were about like 500 or just a little bit above 500 as a team. So they did have a drop off, and maybe they're thinking like, based on last season's play, like Bueno was really solid. He played up a lot. Maybe if we put Ikeda with Manu, that'd be a stronger team on paper, but that they have just not been good as a team. And I don't know. I don't, maybe it's because they're just too, like, Manu in doubles is different in singles. In singles, Manu has to throw a lot of shots. In doubles, Manu is not, he doesn't get as many kills in that. And primarily in doubles, the front quarter is getting a lot of opportunities to kill, and Ikeda has a lot of shots into the pad. Oh, Ikeda was really bad against the Warriors. A lot of drops. I don't know what was happening there. It was not his best showing, and Ikeda and Manu have not been a good team. Ikeda's played better. I thought Ikeda played well as a fireball last season, and he's had some rough game days for us. But that's something I've already legislated. Maybe the owners, Mike and Chris, could have set up better teams, but this is just really disappointing because I'm calling it. We're not making the season. We're at 3 points. We're 2 points behind the Chargers. Like, from a realistic standpoint, we'd have to get like 4 points, you'd think, to have a shot at it. I know the Chargers have come down, but you think that with 5 games remaining, the Chargers can get the Chargers can get 2 points out of that, at least, even if they play bad. So I don't know. Let's finish this off with a calendar look and see. I think off the top of my head, we play the Fireballs one more time and the Devils twice and the Renegades twice. So the schedule does not help the Cyclones out because those are the three best teams. We don't have any more head-to-head opportunities with the Chargers. And that's where that really hurt us, because we lost our first two matches of the Chargers. And those are games where you could analyze it and break it down and say, man, we should have got half a point. Or honestly, the first time we played them, we should have won the game day. But we didn't get it done. And ultimately, this is a team where at the start of the season, Andrew said they're a championship. They have the championship level talent on paper. I thought that too. I agreed with it. I know from my sources that ownership was told, you drafted a championship talented team. This team is talented enough to win the championship. And here we are at the bottom. I just don't know. Alex beating Inaki. That was something I didn't see. If that goes, and it was in straight sets too. Woo. That was a rough one. But anyway, schedule does not favor us, that we have to play the toughest of the toughest, and we can't get ties. Let me tell you that. 5 ties isn't going to get it done. That gets us to 5.5 points, and a tie versus these teams wouldn't be a bad thing. A win would be a very tall task. That's why I'm calling it. We're entering like a really tough part of the schedule. The two lower teams in there, we're done. We're not playing the Warriors. We're not playing the Chargers. We're playing all the best in battle court right now, which is why I don't think we can make up the points in this. And so you look at the Chargers. Let's see. Chargers play Devils. Chargers play the Devils again. Chargers play Fireballs. Chargers play Warriors. Yeah, they play the Warriors twice, Devils twice, and Fireballs once. So their schedule is a little bit easier. They got the Warriors. Like, they could even one game day win for the Chargers at this point is really gonna hurt us. So it's over. We'll still cover the season, but look at other things. Hey, maybe try getting some guests on here. Would love to get some players on, and possibly might be getting some other people on as well. So that's something to look forward to. We're still going to keep breaking it down. We're still going to talk Clone Cartel, because there's a lot we can still discuss. And who knows, maybe the boys will rally and take that paper talent and turn it into talent on the court. God bless Alai, ladies and gentlemen.
Estoy